There was once a young man named Aria who lived in a prosperous household. Born into a wealthy family, he had everything one could ask for: luxury, comfort, and status. Yet, despite all this, he was troubled by a deep, unshakable emptiness. Aria's friends, who were content with their own lives, couldn't understand his feelings. As time passed, Aria began to feel increasingly isolated, consumed by his inner turmoil. He frequently pondered the same question: why do I feel so empty? What is the meaning of life? Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but the answers eluded him. One day, after a long period of struggling with his thoughts, Arya decided to seek the wisdom of Buddha. Buddha was known for his profound ability to guide troubled souls and offer clarity amidst confusion. Arya embarked on a long journey, traveling through forests and across fields, finally arriving at the serene temple where Buddha resided. Upon entering the temple, Arya was greeted by a beautiful garden with a tranquil pond reflecting the sunlight. There, Buddha sat, surrounded by his disciples, offering his wisdom. Arya approached him with reverence, bowing his head. Buddha, Arya said, I am troubled by the emptiness I feel in my life. How can I overcome this suffering? Buddha gazed at Arya with kind eyes and began to speak softly. Arya, he said, the emptiness and suffering you feel are not unique to you. It is a part of the human experience. All beings face this same truth about life. It is not something to fear, but something to understand. With this, Buddha led Arya on a walk around the pond. The sunlight glistened on the water's surface, and Buddha continued speaking. Look around, Arya. Everything in this world is filled with suffering. The act of birth, aging, sickness, and death. These are all sources of suffering. The separation from loved ones, the inability to attain what we desire. These too are causes of suffering. Arya nodded, beginning to understand. He had seen happy people around him, yet they all seemed to carry some form of burden or pain. Buddha's words rang true in his heart. And the root of all this suffering, Buddha continued, lies in attachment. We cling to people, possessions, and experiences, fearing their loss or change. This attachment, this fear of loss, is what gives rise to suffering. Arya reflected deeply on Buddha's words. He realized that he too was attached to many things: his wealth, his status, his comfort, and he was constantly anxious about losing them. His mind was never at peace. How can I free myself from this suffering? Arya asked. Buddha smiled gently. The way to release suffering is to let go of attachment and see things as they truly are. True happiness does not depend on external circumstances. It is found within, through serenity, contentment, and the quiet joy of the present moment. Arya closed his eyes, taking in Buddha's words. Could it really be that simple? To find joy not in external things, but within himself? Perhaps this was the key to escaping the emptiness he had felt for so long. The group sat down beneath a great tree. Buddha's disciples gathered around, and Arya asked a new question. Buddha, Arya said, I want to live each day with brightness and joy. How can I do that? Buddha smiled once again and looked around at his disciples. Arya, what if you were to view life as a game? Buddha suggested. The disciples exchanged curious looks. Arya, too, was perplexed. A game? Arya asked. What do you mean? Buddha explained. Yes, life is like a game. It has its rules and obstacles. But it is those very obstacles that make the game interesting. In life, suffering and difficulty are like obstacles we must overcome. They are not things to fear, but challenges to be faced. Overcoming them brings growth and joy. Aria's eyes widened in realization. The suffering he had feared so much could be reframed as opportunities for growth. Buddha continued, think of it like a game of chess. You move your pieces, but sometimes your opponent blocks your path. Yet, it is overcoming those obstacles that makes the game exciting. Similarly, when you face challenges in life, view them as opportunities to grow and learn. Arya began to understand. The difficulties he had once seen as burdens were now being framed as necessary steps in his personal journey. Buddha's words were transforming his perspective. Look at the surface of the pond, Buddha said, pointing to the water. When the wind blows, the water ripples. But once the wind stops, the water returns to calmness. The human mind is like the water. When challenges come, the mind may be disturbed, but with patience and strength, it will find peace again. Arya took a deep breath. He had always seen obstacles as sources of frustration and despair, but now they seemed like opportunities to be embraced. Buddha smiled. Indeed, life is like a game, and to play it well, you must understand the rules. Learn the psychology of life and develop wisdom. With these tools, you can overcome any difficulty. Buddha began to teach his disciples the psychology of life. This world is in constant change, Buddha said. Things are born and they fade, but our attachment to them causes suffering. It is the change itself that is the essence of life. Accepting this change, rather than resisting it, is key to peace. Arya listened intently, noticing the rustling of leaves around him. The sound of the wind through the trees was like a symbol of life's constant ebb and flow. Buddha pointed to the ripples on the pond. Everything in this world has a cause and condition, Buddha continued. Each event leads to the next, just as a single ripple on the water creates others. Our thoughts and actions create waves in our lives. One thought leads to another, creating a cycle that shapes our experiences. Arya reflected on this deeply. He had seen how his anger and frustration had created more anger and frustration in his life. It was a never-ending cycle. Buddha's teachings were offering him a way out. Our suffering is not without cause, Buddha said. It is a result of our past actions, our thoughts, and our attitudes. That is why it is so important to look within and understand the roots of our suffering. Arya pondered this. He had been so focused on material wealth and status that he had neglected his inner peace. Buddha's teachings were showing him that true happiness came from within. Through self-reflection, he could change the course of his life. But the law of cause and effect does not bind us, Buddha continued. By understanding it, we can change our hearts. We can plant new seeds for a better future. We can break the cycle of anger and cultivate compassion. A sense of hope began to rise in Arya's heart. He no longer had to be bound by the past. He could create a new future, starting with the present moment. Buddha smiled, sensing the shift in Arya. By understanding the law of cause and effect, we can feel compassion for the suffering of others, Buddha said. Everyone, like you, is caught in their own cycle of causes and conditions. When we can empathize with others, we develop compassion. Compassion is the key to true wisdom. Arya thought of the people he had met along his journey. Farmers, children, elders, all of them living their own lives, each facing their own struggles. But despite their challenges, they all seemed to find joy in their hearts. Buddha's words were illuminating a new path for Arya, one where he could find peace not in possessions or achievements, but in the shared human experience of life. With compassion in his heart, Arya would now see the world not as a place of suffering, but as a field for growth and understanding. Buddha's teachings had given him the tools to face life's challenges with wisdom and to find true happiness within himself. As Buddha and his disciples walked back to the village, they passed many people. The farmers found joy in their work, the children in their play, and the elders in their peaceful moments with family. Arya was moved by the realization that happiness was not about material wealth, but about the joy one could find in simple moments. Buddha spoke again. Happiness is not found in external things. It is found in your heart, in your attitude. No matter what happens, you can find joy if you choose to see it. Aria, now filled with a deep sense of peace, knew that he had found the true meaning of life. He had learned that happiness was not something to be pursued outside himself, but something to be cultivated from within. The key to overcoming emptiness was not in acquiring more, but in letting go of attachment, accepting change, and finding contentment in the present moment. And so, Aria's journey continued, but with a new understanding. He was no longer a prisoner of his desires or his fears. He had discovered the secret to living brightly, no matter the circumstances, by finding joy within and embracing the challenges of life with wisdom and compassion. The lessons of Buddha were now etched in his heart, guiding him forward, and he knew that, just like the game of life, each challenge was an opportunity for growth. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you find the peace and wisdom that Buddha taught, and may your life be filled with joy and understanding. Until next time, stay enlightened and live brightly.